Recording. Okay, so you've all got the Makorot, right? So we're dealing with the Meraglim, and to remind you, the Meraglim, we have two stories of Meraglim. We have the Meraglim in Parshat Shlach Lecha and in Parshat Devarim. And in Parshat Shlach Lecha, it sounds like it's a mitzvah that Moshe is initiating the Meraglim. But in Parshat Dvarim, we discover that essentially they came to him first. They asked him first that they want to send Meraglim. We have 12 Meraglim, and not from Shevet Levi, and 10 Meraglim come back and they report more or less directly what they saw. That isn't really the problem, at least according to Ramban. The problem is that they give an opinion. They say Ephes, they say that we can't do it, it cannot be done. And the people who defend the mission, Yoshua and Kalev, though Yehoshua doesn't really speak, Kalev is the only one who speaks. And we'll get to that with the Piet Sesna afterwards. I just want to start with Rabbi Sachs. If you have a look at Rabbi Sachs, so Rabbi Sachs speaks about the fact, Zeu אולי הכישלון, כל פעם שאתם שולחים, זה עושה לי רעש פה. זה אולי הכישלון המנהיגותי הקולקטיבי החמור ביותר בתורה. This is probably the biggest disaster, scandal in leadership in all of the Torah. עשרה מהמרגלים שמשה שלח לתור את ארץ כנען חזרו ובאמתחתם דוח שנועד לשפוע את רוחו של העם. They come back with a report. The report, a spy comes and gives information. They're not meant to give an opinion. Spies don't give opinions. The person in the leadership is meant to collect all the information and then provide an opinion. But they didn't do that. They came back and they gave an opinion, and they broke the morale of the people. We went to the land that you sent us to. It's beautiful. It's flowing with milk and honey. And they brought the fruits as well. Efes ki az ha'am hayoshev ba'aretz, but nothing can work here because the people that live in the land are very strong. V'arim b'tzurot gedolot ma'od, and the cities are fortified. Lo nuchal la'alot el ha'am ki chazak hu mimenu. We cannot conquer that people because they are greater than us. The land that we went by, that we went to visit, is a land that consumes. It consumes its inhabitants. They saw us as nothing. We saw them as giants. And that is the report that they give. It's a disastrous report. It's a report that will create what Ema Banim Smecha calls propaganda. He calls it propaganda. They created propaganda against the idea of living in Israel. Ele hayu divrei hevel. These were stupid words. V'hamraglim amrim hayu ladad zot. And the Meraglim should have known this. Why? Hem yatzu miMitzrayim. They came out of Egypt. Ha'imperia hagdola biyoter ba'olam hakadum. The greatest empire in those days. They conquered Egypt. They walked away from Egypt. After a number of makot that brought Egypt to its knees. They walked through the sea, through the Dead Sea. They killed the Amalekites. A people of warriors. They even sang. Need to mute. Joanne, you need to mute. הם אפילו שרו עם כל בני ישראל אחיהם את שירת הים ובא מילים עליהם שמעו עמים ירגזו חיל אחז יושבי פלשת. They even testified to themselves that the people there were totally scared of us. חיל אחז יושבי פלשת, אז נבהלו אלופי אדום, the chieftains of Edom were trembling, Ele Moav yochazemu ra'ad namogu kol yeshvei Canaan. All the people of Israel were withering. So they should have known. They sang it. It was 40 years earlier, but they sang it. The people were scared of them. The people were scared of them. וכן אכן היה. כפי שסיפרה לימים רחב, and Rachav says exactly that. When they enter Israel, and the spies are sent, the two spies are sent in Yoshua Perek Bet, and they're sent into Israel. The reaction is that the people are scared of us. So why did they believe the spies? העם לא שאלם, אבל שני המנהיגים קיבלו את שכרם. רק הם מכל בני הדור זכו להיכנס לארץ. The only two people that spoke in favor of going into Israel were Yoshua and Caleb, and they got their reward. יתרה מכך, הכרזת אמונה דווקנית שלהם, their expression of faith, וסירובם להיסחף אחר הפחד, and their refusal to fall to פחד, to fall to fear. זוהרים היום בשמנו אותה בוהג שהיה להם אז. לפני 3,300 שנה יהושע וכלב הם גיבורים הנצחיים של האמונה. In essence, Yoshua and Caleb are the heroes of Emunah. When no one else believed, they were the ones who believed. אחת המשימות הבסיסיות של כל מנהיג, this is now Rabbi Sachs speaking, one of the major roles of any leader, מראש ממשלה עד ראש משפחה, from a prime minister all the way to the head of a family, היא לתת לאנשים תחושת ביטחון, is to give people a feeling of trust, a feeling that things are okay, that things can be dealt with, that however overwhelming something appears to be, a challenge can be met. ביטחון עצמי, to give self-confidence, ביטחון בקבוצה שהם חלק ממנה, to give confidence to the people that you are a part of, ביטחון במשימה עצמה, and to have faith in the actual objective that we're facing. המנהיג, the leader, חייב להאמין בעם שהוא מוביל. He has to believe in his people, in the people that he is leading, ולהקרין אליו את האמונה הזו. And he has to also radiate that trust that he has to them. He has to show that he has trust in them. כדבריה של תיאורטיקנית הניהול מהרווארד, he quotes someone called Roosevelt Moss Cantor. She wrote a book called הביטחון בהצלחה, having trust in success. הדבר המרכזי במנהיגות איננו המנהיג, אלא הדרך שבה הוא גורם לאחרים לבטוח בו. The most important thing in leadership is not the leader, but the ability to create trust in him from other people. לא פעם מתנהלים חיינו על פי עקרון הנבואה המגשימה את עצמה. Now he says something very interesting. He goes in a direction that I don't suppose you would expect him to go, and it's certainly not the direction that Piet Sesler goes in, and not the direction that Rebbe Nachman goes in later on. But he says very often we prophesy our own reality, and he explains, "Varim korim lanu mipnei she'anachnu choshim shehem yikru." Things happen to us because we believe that they're going to happen. We convince ourselves that something's going to happen, and then it happens. We put ourselves in a situation where something is going to happen. When people say they can't do something, they normally find out that they're correct. They convince themselves that they can't do something, and therefore they can't do it. Because they thought they couldn't do it, so they couldn't. The opposite is with people who say they can do it. Yachol nuchal is a quote from our parasha. Yachol nuchal are the words of Kalev in response to the spies. Yachol nuchal, we can do it. If you do not believe in your ability to succeed, so you probably will lose. If you have trust, and it's a strong trust in yourself, belief in yourself, that is based on preparation and the past. Then you will succeed. Not always, but it will give you the ability to overcome. If you believe that you can do it. You hear that, MTA? If you believe that you can do it. This is what teaches us this story, B'Sefer Shemot over the page. Al Yidei Moshe Bekerev Bekrav Im Amalek. When he fights Amalek, K'shebnei Yisrael mistaklim klape mala. When we look to the heavens and we have self-belief, Hem Govrim, they succeed. Shem Kovshim Rasham Bekarka. If you put your heads in the ground, then you begin to lose. זו גם הסיבה לכישלון ההגדרה השלילית של הזהות היהודית. He takes a path here that, if you've learned a bit of Rabbi Sachs, won't surprise you. He says this is the failure in Judaism. Kavanati, and my kavanah, he says, is the tfisa haravachat kol kach be'idan hamoderni, the tfisa that we have in our time. I always wonder when people write things that, had they experienced certain experiences, whether they would have written the same thing again. Rav Amital always used to ask that question about Rav Kook, whether he would have said the same thing, the Rav Kook, had he gone through the Shoah. And I also wonder what Rav Hirsch would have said had he lived through the Shoah after what he says in the beginning of Sefer Shemot. So here, he says, Rabbi Sachs says, and Rabbi Sachs he's lived through a lot of anti-Semitism, Rabbi Sachs, but not the most recent anti-Semitism. But he says that Ha'am ha'yodi hu ha'am shumot ha'olam sonot. Rabbi Sachs says that the fact that we believe that the non-Jews hate us creates a reality that the non-Jews hate us. That's what he writes here. The fact that we believe that we stand alone, the reason to be Jewish is to prove victory over Hitler. He says, I don't agree with that tfisa. If you keep saying it, if you keep saying that everyone hates you, then everyone hates you. Then everyone will hate you. If you want that reality to be, and you keep repeating that reality, then that's what it will be. If troubles and punishment what punishes is what the Jewish people is, why should you be a Jew? When people grow up with a Judaism that is so negative and pessimistic, they don't want to be Jews. They want to marry out. They want to be part of they want to be accepted people. If you go through an idea again and again and again, then that's what people begin to believe. A historian Ish Harvard, he quotes another Harvard historian, David Landers. He did this doctorate, I don't know what it was, some kind of paper he wrote, on why certain countries never succeed economically. You hear Africa? So you are listening. So, whereas other countries are very, very successful. Besifro, he has a book that says Osher Ha'amim v'Oni Ha'amim, the rich countries and the poor countries. He writes 500 pages, and he comes to the following conclusion. The optimists, they succeed in our world, not because they're always correct, but because they are positive. Even when they are mistaken, they're positive. Optimism muskal ופיקוח עיניים משתלם. Pessimism יכול להציע לכל היותר. The most that pessimism can offer is הנחמה הריקה שבהיותו צודק. The consolation that you're right sometimes. You say, see, I was right, it was terrible. I can tell you as a pessimist. אני מעדיף את המילה תקווה על פני המילים optimism. He says, instead of using the word optimism, he prefers the word hope. Optimism hu emunah sheyeh beseder. The optimism means I believe that it will be okay. Tikva hi, but what is hope? Ha'emunah shebiyachad nuchal ligrom lekach sheyeh beseder. That together we can make it work. We can make it be beseder. יהודי המכיר את ההיסטוריה של עמו אינו יכול להיות אופטימיסט, אך יהודי הראוי לשם יהודי לעולם אינו נוטש את התקווה. A Jew who knows the history of Judaism can't always be an optimist, but they can always have hope. We have seen things over the last year, 2 years, where certain calculations, certain interpretations of what was going to happen have, when translated into reality, have proven to be very, very different. We had that with Hezbollah, right? When everyone was so fearful of what would happen in Lebanon when we go into Lebanon. We went into Lebanon, they ran away. And we've been speaking about this conflict for the last 20 years. A parent wrote to me today, said, I hope it will be over soon. I didn't want to write back because I didn't want to get her worried. I mean, I hope it won't be over till we finish it. We've been talking about this nuclear weapon for a long, long time, and we've now got an opportunity to do something which really threatens the existence of our people. Really threatens the existence of our people, not something that can be pushed aside. And these are things that when we considered them a year ago, 2 years ago, they seemed like mountains that were absolutely impossible to climb. And here we are. Yeah, it's difficult. We're hearing sirens. There are casualties, but we are facing the enemy. An enemy that the whole world should have faced, and we're facing them at the moment more or less alone. So the tikva, the hope, hanavim pessimistim biotem Amos ad Yirmiyahu, the Nevi'im who were pessimistic, Amos until Yirmiyahu, hishmiu afhem et kolah shel tikva. Even they had words of hope. Hamaraglim lumazot, but the Meraglim, they come back with only bad news. Someone just asked a question. Oh, she's gone. Only bad news. So they came back. Hanavim pessimistim bioter. Sorry, the Meraglim. I lost my place. Hameraglim lumazo gilu tvusan tanut. They defeatism. All they had was defeatism. We can't do it. It won't be done. And therefore they failed as leaders, and they failed as Jews. A Jew has to have tikva. Od lo avda tikvatenu. הפירוש המרשים ביותר שהושג עד היום לפרשת מרגלים הוא זה של הרבי מלובביץ'. Now he quotes the Rebbe Milubavitch in his explanation of the Meraglim. Harav Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who שאל את השאלה המתבקשת. He asked a question that is begging. התורה מדגישה כי המרגלים היו כולם מנהיגים. The Torah says that all of these people, they were all manigim, they were all leaders. Nesiim, they were princes. Rashei Shvatim, they were heads of tribes. Hem levetach yadu she'Hashem itam, they must have known, they were believing Jews, they must have known that God was with them. V'sheka'asher hu be'ezratam, ein davar ba'olam shelo yachlu la'asod. And if God is with them, there's not anything that they cannot do. Hem yadu she'Hashem lo yamavtech lehem eretz shelo ya'aleh bi'adam lekofsha. God wouldn't promise them a land that they couldn't conquer. So why did they come back with such a negative report? It says his answer tells us the whole story upside down. He says the Meraglim were not worried about defeat. He said they were worried that they would be victorious. They said what they said. But what caused them to say it was something totally different. What was their situation at the moment in the Midbar? The Nesiim, these princes, what was their status? They were very, very close to God. They drank water from a rock. They ate manna from heaven. They were surrounded by clouds of honor. And what's going to happen to them when they go into Israel? They're going to lose their positions, they're going to lose their status. They're going to have to go and fight. They're going to have to be involved in plowing the land. They're going to have to establish an army. They have to do what every other people does. And they weren't doing that at the moment. They would have to live in a real world, in an empirical world. And what would be their relationship with God? You know where I'm going, right? They don't want to serve in the army. They want to sit in Kolel. They want to sit in the Midbar, and that's what they want their life to be. That's what they want their life to be. It's an ideal life. You sit in the Midbar, and you get water, and you get food. You get a stipend. You've got an anei kavod, and they don't want to go in. Rav Zevin speaks about that. He says, if you look at the mitzvot that come after the Meraglim, you have Kala and Nesachim, and they are both mitzvot where you take something physical and you put kedusha into it, because that's what a Jew is meant to do. They're meant to be in the world of kedusha. They're meant to do things that have kedusha. They're not meant to hide in the Beit Midrash all of their lives. They have to take what they've learned in the Beit Midrash and go out. They want to stay in the midbar, and that's what they get. That's what happens. God says, "You want to stay in the midbar? Stay in the midbar. You can have what you want. Stay in the midbar. Live in the midbar. Die in the midbar. You stay in the midbar. And tell me whether you like it." You live there. You live in your Beit Midrash with Ananei Kavod. There will be Ananei Kavod. There are still Ananei Kavod. And that's the way it will be. That's the way it will stay. And you won't have anything else. That will be your lives. And they immediately understand their mistake, but it's too late. What will be his place in their life? Kain hu adayin yeh nochach begeshem hamasmiach et hayibolim bibirkat haseh va'ir b'mikdash b'Yerushalayim shem yalu elav shalosh regalim b'shana. It said, if you get involved in the world, the nochachut of God won't be the same as a midbar. How did that man in the Rova tell me? He said to me, it's an absolute assault for people to go in the army. He said, no Jew ever served in the army. So I asked him, I said, what about Avraham Avinu? He served in the army. And he said Avraham Avinu was very kadosh. So he's right. Avraham Avinu was very kadosh. We want to be kadoshim as well. We want to also be part of that reality of going into the world and having kedusha and playing a part in the kedusha. We want to be these tayasim, no? You want to be a pilot who flies over Iran and destroys their nuclear weapons. I think that's a lot of kedusha, someone who's able to do that. And it's nachon, they're able to do it because of present davening, but someone has to do it. Someone has to do it. We're not waiting for America. We waited for America in Auschwitz. They never came. They never came. They never bombed the train lines. They never came. We're not waiting for them anymore. We're not waiting for Goyim anymore to come and save us. We have to save ourselves. People want to destroy us. We have to save ourselves. There's nothing more kadosh than that. But the Meraglim didn't want to do that. And this is the Rebbe Milubavitch, right? He's not translating it the way I'm translating it, but that's what he's saying. You know, a few weeks ago on Shavuot, you have this minhag to stay up all night. We did it, right? We stayed up all night. And it's based on a midrash. The midrash says that the night before Matan Torah, Am Yisrael overslept. That's a peculiar, right? They're not like midrashah girls. That's that peculiar reality, right? That they overslept. You'd oversleep before Matan Torah. You're not anticipating something great. You would actually oversleep. You won't be able to sleep, Bikla. So the Rebbe Miluvavitch has a very, very interesting parshanut on that particular point. His parshanut is that they went to sleep because they felt that the Torah is so holy that it can't be part of their bodies. They have to be asleep. It can only be their soul. I said that is a fundamental mistake. The Torah was made for this world. It was made to be used in this world. The Meraglim are making that mistake. He says their pessimism created the defeat, but he says their pessimism came not because they were pessimists by nature, but because their ideology was mistaken. It was a wrong ideology. Their ideology was that the place for a Jew to be is in Ichvesnis, Seik, Teaneck, Woodmere, Caulfield, there you go, Caulfield as well, and Glen Hazel, and Canada, wherever it may be. They thought that's where Jews should be. Live it. I don't want to be here in the middle of a war. I know that I'm speaking to all of you, right? There's nowhere else you want to be. You don't want to be anywhere else. You want to be here. You want to be part of this. You want to be part of history. You want to be in the picture. You don't want to be taking pictures. You want to be in the picture. However hard it is to be in the picture, you want to be in the picture. So that's the kivun that he goes in here. 2 points he makes, Rabbi Sachs. Number one is we can realize our own prophecies by the way we reflect them ourselves, by the way we approach them. It doesn't always work, but if you look at the title of the page in Yiddish, right, it is Trach gut ve sein gut. If you think good, it will be good. It doesn't always work, but certainly it's got a much better chance of working if you go in saying, I want it to work. I think it's going to work, and we're determined to work. It's some of the greatest things we've done in the Midrashah, because the room you're sitting in, MTA, is a room that we literally dug. We dug that room up. Only where the girl's sitting right at the back, about a meter there, that width and that length, that was the room. Where you're sitting, Alex, there was no room there. You and Quack, where you're sitting, there was no room. And if you go and knock on the wall in front of you, you'll be able to hear a noise because it's not a real wall. And behind that wall is a mikveh. And we dug that room out ourselves. That room never existed. So we came there. We didn't have a big room. We had to create a big room. So we dug it out. We dug it secretly. Every day we sneaked out a bit of mud and threw it out, because if the antiquities found out, it would close the whole midrashah. So just saying goodbye to the family. They're leaving the mamad. That if you think you can do something, you can succeed in doing it. Those are the words of the Rebbe, the first words. The second words of the Rebbe, they're so shire to what we're living now. Is he said that people can actually think because they are kadoshim, they think the place to be is to be in the midbar, to be in the midbar, to be there with your water, with your manna, and you don't need to go to Israel, you don't need to plow the land, you don't need to fight wars. Who would want to fight wars? And the answer is you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. The ideal is to go into Israel. The idea is to live in Israel. The idea is to plow the land. You know, there is a Khatam Sofer that has conveniently been removed from his Perush on Sukkah. And I only saw it because the Emab named Smecha quotes him. The Khatam Sofer says that in the days of Mashiach, plowing the land of Israel will be equivalent to wearing tefillin. Equivalent to wearing tefillin. That's what the Khatam Sofer says. In the days of Mashiach, plowing the land of Israel will be equivalent to wearing tefillin. And that's Kedusha, right? That is creating a Kedusha. I want to go over the page to the Pietzesna. Let me give you the context to the Pietzesna's comment. The Pietzesna over the page in the Eish Kodesh, June 1940. So I have to tell you what was going on in June 1940, or remind you, because I'm sure you all remember what was going on in June 1940. In June, now the Pietzesna is writing in Warsaw, not the Warsaw Ghetto, because the ghetto doesn't exist till October 1940. Okay, it doesn't exist till October 1940, but Warsaw is occupied by Germans, and the Jews of Warsaw are already suffering enormously. But what happens in June 1940? In June 1940, the Germans invade, well, in May, they invade Belgium and Holland, and they conquer Belgium and Holland. In June 1940, they conquer France. And when they conquer France, 385,000 British troops get miraculously over the sea, over the channel, Dunkirk, if you've heard of Dunkirk, back to England. Otherwise, the war would have been totally over. The reality is such, in June 1940, if you're living in Warsaw, and this is the context of the words of the Pietzesna, if you're living in Warsaw, June 1940, you have no hope whatsoever. Because there's no one left. There's no one left to fight. The British have run away. The Americans don't know there's a war on. They think Hitler's a hero. You've got Canada's Canada's involved because they're involved with the British. South Africa also with the British. Australia also with the British, but they're all running away. They're all scared already. The Dutch have gone, the Belgians have gone, the Scandinavians have gone, the French have gone, Poland has gone, Russia is an ally with Germany. What are you meant to think if you're a Jew in Warsaw in June 1940 and you're reading this parsha? And look at this Pietzesna, unbelievable Pietzesna, one to put on your walls, okay? Mia, Mamma Mia, you put it on the wall, okay? Alon alevi arashno ataki achonu chala. He says something remarkable, the Pietzesna, because he says that if you look at what the spies answer, the spies give logical explanations as to why it's not going to work, point by point. Moshe asks them questions and they answer the questions point by point. And what does Kalev answer? You would expect Kalev to say, 1, you said this and it's not correct. 2, you said this and it's not correct. 3, you said this and it's not correct. And he doesn't say that. He doesn't say that. He says, Alon ale, we can do it. Well, what kind of answer is that? I mean, if you're in a debate with someone and you put down points, 1, 2, 3, 4, he said, I don't agree because we can. What kind of argument would that be? What kind of discussion would there be? You say, well, that's stupid. You can't have an argument that way. You can't have a discussion that way. He says, Alon ale. That's what Kalev says. Have a look at the Pietzesna. And again, remember the context that we are quoting the Pietzesna from. June 1940, everything has collapsed. Everything is over. There is absolutely no obvious hope for the Jewish people. The Germans have conquered Europe. Hitler is the empire of Europe. There's nothing left. And he is in coalition with Stalin. The two most wicked men who probably ever lived on this earth are in partnership together. And the Jews are having their beards pulled off. They're being beaten up. And they're having each day a new rule. All the rules that were implanted on Jews in Germany over 6 or 7 years have happened in 6 months in Poland. So what is say? I don't understand, says the Pietzesna. The Meraglim said things that make a lot of sense. They said the people are strong, the ha'arim b'tzurot, and the cities are fortified. Why doesn't Kalev argue with them? Why doesn't he argue with them point by point? Rakstam alon na'aleh, he just says we can do it. That's an answer. Aval kein tzricha liot emunat ish ha'Yisraeli. This is the way a Jew has to think. Lo bilvad b'shah shero'eh mavo v'derech leshuato yamim b'Hashem. You don't just believe in God when you're winning. You believe in God all the time. You believe in God. You have that belief that we can do it. We can beat the odds. Do you know that on Thursday night, we killed 15 high-ranking Iranians at exactly the same time? At exactly the same time. They didn't know we were coming. They didn't even know we were coming. I don't know what was going on, what strategy was used. Every single thing that has happened over the last 2 years since we reacted on October the 7th just seems to go higher and higher. And I don't think everything's going to be rosy until the end. But the reality of that belief, we can do it. And when I say not just when we succeed, but even when we've been fighting a war for 2 years. It started in the most terrible way. At the end of this war, it is quite possible that there'll be no Iran, there'll be no Hezbollah, and there'll be no Hamas. That's unbelievable. It's a possibility, right? It's a possibility that the Iranians could be swept aside. I hope, Bezrat Hashem. We see it through and we get a bit of help from Hashem, a lot of help from Hashem. Something that we could never have dreamed of 2 years ago. And we had the biggest nightmare on earth on October the 7th. And we still have a nightmare because we still have people who are hostages and still stuck there. At the same time, Hamas has fallen apart. Hezbollah almost doesn't exist. Syria has fallen apart. And now we've gone to the head of the snake, and we're fighting the head of the snake face to face. Who would have believed that 2 years ago? Not only when it works, when it doesn't work as well, when we're down with our backs to the wall as we were on October the 8th. Yamim b'Hashem she'osher v'yitchazek rak gam b'shah she'ein orech chas v'sham shum mavo. What's the PSS saying to the people? He's speaking to the people when France has fallen. He says, the way we look at this naturally, we will never, ever get out of this. He says, but we don't believe in never, ever. The Jewish people doesn't believe in never, ever. The truth of the matter is, the cynics amongst you say, we didn't really get out of it. As a nation, we did. As a nation, we got out of it. We didn't get out of it as individuals, not as communities, not as families. But as a nation, we did get out of it. The PSS didn't get out of it. He didn't survive the war. He says just because France has collapsed and the English have gone back to England and the Dutch have fallen and the Belgians have gone and Scandinavia has fallen and Poland has fallen, and you think there's nothing left for us, he says that's not a Jewish way of thinking. Don't look at the news. That's what he says. I can't keep that. This Shabbos is one of the hardest Shabbatot I've ever had. Just knowing what happened. Why can't we attack on Sundays? Why do we have to attack on Thursday night? Like, and have all of Shabbos not knowing what's going on. Mamash don't know what's going on Shabbos. I had to walk around with my phone all day because my unit can get called up now, because if a lot of people get killed, my unit gets called up. So I had my phone on me on loudspeaker all day. I can't put my phone down. I'm not allowed to. I'm told that my phone's got to be on and I got to hear it. And I got a call about half an hour ago, said we're on red alert, that if there's another hit like there was last night, that we'll all be called up. And so you have these moments and it's so difficult. He says, but you have to believe. A Jew believes. That's the answer. Kalev doesn't want to argue with them. He doesn't want to go into details. This is wrong and this is wrong. He's not going to argue. We can do it and that's it. You believe and we can do it. Eretz Canaan comes from the word Nativot Shalom Kni'ah, which is subservience. It's when a human being knows his place and he knows that he's not in charge of everything, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs things. It's Eretz Asher Einei Elokei Abba Bereshit Shana Dacharit Shana. That God is involved in our country. He's not involved directly in America. He's not involved directly in South Africa. He couldn't be. Look at the rand. He's not involved directly in Australia and certainly not in England. He couldn't. It's too dark and rainy. He has Melachim that deal with these countries, but Israel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here all the time. Our success in Israel is due to Hashgachat Hashem. And that's what we believe in. And that's why this country does things that it keeps making history. And every country in the Western world, under that, they'll only mutter it, they'll never say it out loud. Mr. Trump will because he doesn't care. But they are blessing us for what we're doing to Iran. They are blessing us. We are getting rid of the modern day Nazis, the modern day Hitlers. We're cutting the head off the snake, and we should only be successful and get everywhere we have to go to. We are learning from the mistakes of the past. When they kowtowed to Hitler in 1933 and they called him all the nice names and they went to see him and they made agreements with him and 50 million people died. And he did exactly what he said he was going to do in Mein Kampf. And he did it to us. So we've learned our lessons. And we have that emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we have such siyata dishmaya. Kalev doesn't want to talk about facts. He doesn't want to speak about the facts. You know, you're wrong about this. No, you're right. You're right about everything, and I don't care. We can still win. And they say, and they speak big, and we'll do this to you, we'll do that to you. Okay, do your best, and we'll do our best. But we have Hashem on our side. Be'ezrat Hashem. That's the way we go. That's what living in Israel is. That's what being a Jew in Israel is. It's the belief. It's the belief that you can do things that defy logic. You read Mark Twain about what was going on in this country 150 years ago. They weren't here. No one was here. There were as many of us here as there were then. It was nothing here. It was a swampland. It was an absolute wasteland. Look what they've done in our country. The roads, the height, everything is just unbelievable. It's all against the flow of logic. None of the countries that we come for ever developed at the speed and the excellence that we have done. And it's all b'siyata dishma, all be'emunah, and defies logic. You know, in the year 1897, a certain individual called Theodor Herzl wrote a pamphlet called Der Judenstaat, the Jewish state. And that pamphlet, I have to tell you, is a very boring pamphlet. It's very, very technical. And he goes into minute details how and this is what he said in Basel in 1897, in 50 years' time, there will be a state declared in Israel. And almost 50 years to the date, a state was declared in Israel because the person believed there was nothing here. There was no one here. There were Palestinians here, but Palestinians were Jews as well. Everyone was Palestinian because the place was called Palestine. There wasn't Arab Palestinians, there were Jewish Palestinians and Arab Palestinians, but there was nothing here. So how did everything come? Because people had a dream, because people faced the odds, because people were in the picture. They didn't just come once a year for a visit. They were in the picture. And you want to be in the picture. You got to be in the picture. The last thing Dr. Yocheved is eating herself that she went to Australia the day before this happened to recruit. And I think I'm going to put off my South African trip. I can't go anyway at the moment, but it's like who wouldn't want to be here? We're living a nevuah. We're mamish. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. We're mamish any minute now. Any minute now, Iran's going to fire. There's not really girls in the Midrashah, but imagine if they take a shot at Har HaBayit and they hit Al-Aqsa. You're going to be there. You're going to be, all the Northern Hemisphere girls are going to be crying at home they missed it. And you're going to see it. You're going to see Mashiach coming. Mamash, you're going to say, Mamash happening. It's happening. Mamash happening. And it's happening because people believe. And not every person who believes wears a kippah. Most of the people who are flying these planes don't wear kippah. But they believe. And they're doing the most heroic things. Some people are learning. These people are doing the most heroic things, but it comes from a belief, and that comes from Kalev. Kalev is a spy who does not argue with rationale. He doesn't argue with detail. He just says, we can do it. Going back to Rav Sachs, if you don't say we can do it, there's no way you can do it. If you don't believe that you can do it, you don't even start thinking that you can do it. But if you actually believe you can do it, if people could see what's been done in this country, those of you who've been with me in Poland know that every time I get to Mila 18, I put on uniform and I stand there and I tell Mordechai Nalevich if he could believe what he started, that army that he started there in Warsaw, what it has become. An army that the whole world is in awe of. And it's an army that has siyata dishma. It just has siyata dishma. Not because it's logical. It doesn't make any sense at all. We are surrounded by about 600 million people who don't want us to be here. But we're here. Baruch Hashem, we're here. And we have sirens, and it's lo na'im, especially in the middle of the night, especially when you need to get up early and you're having sleepless nights because by the time the siren's over, it's time for Vatikin. Beseder. So I just fall asleep during the day, whatever, Beseda. And you hear the booms, and we've had a few falls, and you hear this, and there will be more casualties, I've no doubts, unfortunately. But Baruch Hashem, we're doing this has been a nightmare for the last 20 years that we are confronting the nightmare with the belief that we can do it, with the belief that we can do it. We have soldiers, ladies, in the middle of Iran. You know that. We have the Mossad in the middle of Iran. Do you know what kind of heroism that is? We have Mossad people in the middle of Iran. We have a drone base that was built in the middle of Iran. That's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. And then don't tell me that we never see miracles. We never see miracles. We weren't at Kriyat Yamsuf. So what is this? What's going on? This isn't Kriyat Yamsuf. So the Piaseczner says it's incredible words of Piaseczner. We know he didn't survive, but he's saying that's the Emunah of Am Yisrael. So France has fallen, Belgium has fallen, Holland has fallen, Scandinavia has fallen, Poland has fallen. The Russians are on one side, the Germans are on the other, and they're about to put us in a ghetto. But don't say die. Jewish people don't say die. We never give up. So those are the words of the Piaseczner. I think it's incredible, incredible words. So go to Likutei Moharan, the bottom of the page. We have two Likutei Moharans. One is Torah Ayin Chet, and Rabbi Nachman says, "Va'klal ki asur liya'esh atzmo." This is the source of Ein Shum Yush. Asur liya'esh atzmo. A person can never be despairing. We've spoken about it in the past that Rabbi Nachman differentiates between broken heart, where a Jew can have a broken heart. A Jew it's acceptable for a Jew to have a broken heart, to be upset, but not to be despaired. He won't accept despair. He doesn't think that despair is a legitimate Jewish reaction. Even if you're on the lowest level, that everything seems to have fallen, chas v'shalom, rachmana litzlan, even if you are at the lowest pit, a person should never give up. Things can turn themselves around. Things can become better. You strengthen yourself with what you can. You get it through a tzaddik, through whatever. You can get a resurgence of this belief if you just don't give up. And even when you're down, you just see it through. We spoke about it last week before the girls left. There are times when you can't see anything, when the cloud comes down on the Mishkan, and you just don't move. You just hold through, because it will pass. It will always pass, and things will get better. And it will take a bit of time. That's how I got through the first weeks, months of the war, knowing that it's got to get better. We were at the bottom, and it's just got to get better. That a person will strengthen themselves with everything that they can. A person should never, ever despair. Never give up. Keep fighting. We have no choice, right? We have no choice but to fight. The other choice is to wait until they get a nuclear weapon and blow us to smithereens. So we have no choice. We have to fight. And if we're going to do it, we'll do it well. And by God, do it well. But you don't have no choice. Well, we're going to just wait and wait so the world can have their ball games and drink their beers. And then on one fine day, they'll send an atomic weapon over to Israel. So we have no choice but to fight. But if we're ready, we'll fight. We'll fight positively, and we'll do it the best way we can. And that doesn't mean there won't be hard times to come. This isn't going to disappear so quickly. The airport's not going to open so quickly either. Sorry, Mayan. Well, not really, but I get you for longer. We still got Mayan is still here. Mayan and Kayla, KFC, they're still here. They're still in Israel with us. I missed you by 2 days, girls. MMY, I think, are stuck here as well. Just 2 days, and you would still be here. והעיקר לחזק עצמו בכל מה שאפשר, כי אין שום יש בעולם כלל, ואומנם בכוח גדול ועומקות נפלא ונורא מאוד, with this כוח, כדי להורות ולרמז לכל אחד ואחד לדורות, שלא יתייאש בשום אופן בעולם. All the same theme. It's the same theme, even though the Piaseczner it's not a breadth of the Piaseczner. It's the same theme, is that we don't give up. We have the emunah that we can turn things around, that we can make things good. And I'm nothing here, right? I'm not a soldier, not a real soldier. I'm not, I'm just a citizen in Israel, but I'm a little, I suppose, a tiny little screw in this most massive machine. But I'd rather be that tiny little screw than not be in the machine at all. Just be part of this fantastic. And all the women of ours, these women who are living in Israel, who have families, have children or husbands in Miluim. You see the sacrifice in Sipporah, in Parshat Ba'alotcha, we spoke about last year during the war. In Parshat Ba'alotcha, where Sipporah more or less admits that she's just never seen her husband. She's been separated from her husband because of his role. She never sees her husband. She's this unsung hero. So many unsung heroes, and every single person is a part of this mission that says Ein Shum Yush, that will keep going. You see the people in Bat Yam, and you see the people in Rehovot, and you see the determination that we've seen many times in history, not just by Jews. In London, in the Blitz in the 1940s, the same belief that we can overcome, because evil will always be overcome. It sometimes takes a bit longer. It sometimes takes time to overcome evil. And so turn over the page to the last Rabbi Nachman, the last words of Rabbi Nachman in Torah Kaf Daled, in the second Chelik of Rabbi Nachman Likutei Moharan Tinyana. He says, Mitzvah Gedola Liot Besimcha Tamid. So what's Simcha got to do with the Yush? So there is a parsha that we'll get to in a couple of months' time in the Tochacha of Ki Tavo, when we're told that the Tochacha, the Klalot, happened Tachat Asher Lo Avadata et Hashem Besimcha, because we didn't serve God with Simcha. What does that mean? We didn't serve God with Simcha because I didn't smile when I shook my lulav, I'm going to get all the Klalot. Because I didn't laugh when I went into the Beit Knesset, I'm going to get the Klalot. That's not what the pasuk means. I've told you on numerous occasions, the Klausenberger Rebbe, who entered Auschwitz with his wife and 11 children, and he left on his own. The Klausenberger Rebbe, he was sent from Auschwitz back to Warsaw, where he was cleaning up the remains of the Warsaw Ghetto. And there was a Jew standing next to him. And he says this Jew testifies to the fact that he heard the Klausenberger Rebbe muttering something all the time. And he put his ear closer to the Klausenberger Rebbe. The Klausenberger Rebbe was saying, Tachat Asher lo avadata et Hashem b'simcha. What does that mean? Tachat Asher lo avadata et Hashem b'simcha. If you worry like me, I hope you don't worry like me, because you won't be healthy like me. But if you worry like me, then it's a sign that you don't have enough trust in God. Because if someone has trust in God, they never worry, because they believe that God's running the place. So it all be beseder. The way God wants it to be is what it's going to be. Tachat Asher lo avadata et Hashem b'simcha doesn't mean that you're not smiling and dancing when you're doing a mitzvah. It's simcha that is an inner simcha that a person has if they really trust that God knows what he's doing, that it will be okay because God's running the world. And he's playing this. I'd love to see this chessboard that God has in Shamayim, moving people around over the last 2 years, and the way he's worked the last 100 years. It's the most incredible tapestry. And we haven't a clue what's going on. We haven't a clue what's going on, but we trust that he's doing the tapestry. He knows what he's doing. Someone who really has that trust will always be happy. Not smiling, they're happy on the inside. So mitzvah gedola liot besimcha goes together with Ein Shum Yush. That's why I suppose they put those two songs together, even though they're two separate songs. They add mitzvah gedola Ein Shum Yush, and they added mitzvah gedola liot besimcha. The two things go together, because someone who really believes in God will never despair, and they will be happy. So he starts off by saying mitzvah gedola liot besimcha tamid. ולהתגבר להרחיק העצבות והמרה שחורה בכל כוחו. מרה שחורה in Hasidic Lashon is depression. Again, not medical depression. It's depression that a person will push that aside. וכל החולאות הבאים על האדם, כולם באים רק מקלקול השמחה. All these problems that we have come because we don't have that simcha, we don't have that belief, the trust that Kalev was talking about, the trust that the Piet Sesna is talking about, the belief that we can do it, the belief that it's going to be good. This is going to be good. This is going to, what did I call it on Friday? Purim the sequel. I was almost crying. When I was sending messages to the Bogor in Israel, it's like unbelievable. I'm like living the Megillah. It's like unbelievable. Purim the sequel with our own Achashverosh Trump and his Jewish wife or Jewish daughter, whatever. It's like Purim twice. What a Purim we're going to have after this. And it's Iran again. They never learn. They never learn. They should read the Megillah, right? They should read the Megillah. See what happens when you mess with the Jewish people. Utz Utsu Eitza v'tufa. That's what the Gemara says. Utsu Eitza v'tufa. That's what the baby says to Haman says, tell me a pasuk. He's walking back after he's been embarrassed by Achashverosh. He says, give me your pasuk. And the kid says, Utsu, it's a pasuk in Yeshayahu. Utsu Eitza v'tufa. Dabru davar v'lo yakum ki Immanuel. That's why we sing it in Poland, right? Because we're back. We're back with a flag. You put it on our arm, and now we're waving it as a nation. You stuck a white flag with a Magen David on our arm in Warsaw. Now we wave it as a flag. So kacha Hitler, right? Kacha, the shtuyot. You know, who the hell do you think you are? Utzvei Savatufa, it's a belief, right? So the Ein Yi'ush comes to Mitzvah Gadol Liot B'Simcha, which comes together with Kalev, which comes together with the Piyat Sezna. And the fact is, the Piyat Sezna, you could say the Piyat Sezna on an individual level was wrong, right? He didn't survive, but as a nation, there are more Jews in Israel than ever before, including Bayit Rishon. Including Bayit Rishon. There are more Jews in Israel than ever before, including Bayit Rishon. That's unbelievable. 8 million Jews in Israel, 7.5 million Jews in Israel. And where were we in 1945? As a nation, Ashrecha Israel. We have to be very, very happy. And although we have probably difficult days in front of us, and I don't know if we'll go down before we go up again. But in the meantime, Baruch Hashem, we are seeing incredible nisim. And once again, not for the first time, for the umpteenth time in Jewish history, we are experiencing winning against the odds, winning against the facts, winning against what everyone thinks, doing what no one believes, and the kind of response we're getting from the Western world is similar to what I believed happened in the aftermath of 1967. They cannot believe that we're doing what we're doing, and we're suffering too. A lot of people suffered in Merkaz Haaretz, and there was just, as we started Shiur, there was another siren, and I didn't see on the news what happened. But they send 100 at a time, so every so often they get a hit. These are ballistic missiles. They're not the toys that Hamas were playing with. They're ballistic missiles. They're serious missiles. And so it's complex, but we would never be where we are today if we didn't have that belief. And all of you girls who live in Israel and have shown that same, reflected that same belief by leaving everything behind to come and be in Israel. You're against the odds. Just against the odds. You to build your own families here. I came here on my own. I had no family in Israel. I had an old aunt in Hadera that I was scared to go to because she used to stuff food in my mouth. That's all I had. And now, Baruch Hashem, I got a whole family. I got a whole family in Israel, and my sister's in Israel, and my dad's in Israel, and Baruch Hashem. But I came with nothing, came with mamash nothing. And 30 years later, it's like, 30 years later, it's like a different story altogether. So there's every reason to keep your eyes open, and we have to keep davening and hope that we will have further success. There's still a lot of things. They have a lot of weapons in Iran. We have to destroy a lot of weapons. And with a bit of luck, they'll make the Hitler mistake and they'll get America involved, and then we'll get some American bombs as well and finish this whole ASEC, and we'll have a big Purim together, Bezrat Hashem. We should be, if we can look over our shoulders and if we can look past our own familial issues and our own personal stories and just see the macro, we are seeing the most incredible things. Rub your eyes. It's just the most incredible things. I'm only sorry and half sorry that the girls who just left weren't here to see this with their own eyes, though I'm half not sorry because I would have had to deal with all your parents as well, and I don't know how I would have got you out of the country, but we would have dealt with that, But it's an incredible thing, Baruch Hashem, and we should just hear Besorot Tovot. And those of you who are Bogrot in Israel, as always, very proud of you all. My older ones there, Judith, Amanda, Abby's very old, but she's not even a Bulgarian. She's an old worker. Joanne, Leah. I don't know which Rebecca Adler it is, but Noah Gold, Eliora, Ashley, lots of older Bogrot here who have shown that great Gevura to come to Israel And younger Bogrot as well. That's Shoshi. That's Shoshi. I can see. I can't see all your faces, but it doesn't matter. I know what your faces look like. So Be'ezrat Hashem Chazak ve'ematz alo na'aleh ki nuchal, because we can. And if we believe, like Rabbi Sek says, if we believe, then we will. And we believe, so we will. We have that same belief that we've had for over 70 years, for 77 years. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will, and we hope we do it with the least casualties possible and with the least pain possible. But we will be victorious because we have the truth and because we are good. And good always, always defeats evil. It just takes a bit of time because evil invests a lot of time and they believe in their evil. It will take time, but good will always overcome evil, and it needs heroes and it needs siyata dishmaya. Have a good evening. You should have Besorot Tovot. If I can work out how to send the recording, I will. But
Thank
I
you.
always. Alrighty. Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.